for some reason, when I think about how much time I have in the gym in my life or in my serious training career, I actually think about it in a kind of peaceful, positive way, by which I mean, I think, okay, realistically, this chasing really intense training might go on for another, call it 5 years in my life, right? That's 50 weeks, 5 days a week of training, 250 training sessions a year times 5 years is 1,250 sessions. So I have beep boop boop, right? Like all of this to say, like the way that I think about it is, look, like I have 1,000 sessions of being a really competitive CrossFitter, of going to the gym and being able to do a handstand, being able to rip some muscle ups, being able to move heavy weight. And that's beautiful, right? Like that almost brings like a tear to my eye saying that, right? Like I have 1,000 sessions of that in my life left. That's an amazing thing that I think about. So yeah, okay, maybe I'll never make semis. Maybe I'll never make the games, right? But that's what I'm here for. Right.
The fitness movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, zorfitness.com. Today, I have Sam Hagen on the show. I have the privilege of coaching Sam in a one-on-one capacity, and he actually came to Williamsport this past weekend to do our athlete camp. So it's the second time that I've gotten to link up with him in person and get some face-to-face coaching with him. As you'll hear in this podcast, Sam is a really bright guy, and Coach Chris and I sit down and chat with him just sort of about his journey through life in general, but then also how he got into fitness and specifically CrossFit and why he decided to go the competitive route. Also just how he thinks about his own athletic development and career and trajectory of his fitness. I started off by asking Sam his first impressions of Williamsport.
It's a good industrial town, good American energy. Reminds me of my hometown of Gainesville, Florida, a little bit.
That's right, you're a Florida kid.
Yeah, it's a little colder, a little grayer.
Winter is not my favorite time of year around here, but yeah, man. So you grew up in Gainesville, Florida, and then where'd you go to school?
I went to Harvard.
Harvard.
Yeah.
I never heard of it. Yeah, we're started.
Oh. I didn't know.
I was just rolling.
Yeah. What did you study at Harvard?
I actually majored in theater.
Whoa, snap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thespian.
You don't think Chris need that though?
You can imagine. You can imagine my parents were thrilled about that one. No, it's funny how these things work, right? I was really serious about theater in high school. And then when I was a freshman, sophomore in college and I was declaring a major, I was 100% sure I wanted to have a career in theater. Like I had done an internship on a Broadway show. I'd worked at a casting agency. I'd done all this stuff, and it made sense at the time. And Harvard's a liberal arts school, right? So it's not like you're doing dance and acting studio classes, right? You're doing history, literature, writing papers about Russian plays and stuff like that. So it's a liberal arts major for sure.
Did you have like a plan of what you wanted to do after school?
Yeah, I wanted to work in the theater business. Like I wanted to work at a casting agency or a talent agency or something, the Broadway business or in Hollywood. And I did a couple internships in that area, and I realized it was actually the business that I liked more than the theater. So that's how I ended up in my current job.
Did you even introduce Sam?
No, it doesn't need an introduction.
Okay.
So, explain what you do now.
Yeah, sure. So I work at an investment firm in New York City. It's kind of like a Wall Street type place. I'm not going to say the name or the PR department would come chasing me. But we have investors like university endowments, state teachers' pension funds, that sort of thing, and we invest in companies on their behalf. And so the group that I work with focuses on investing in like financial institutions like insurance companies, banks, that kind of thing, and also investing in Asia. So looking at companies in Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, that kind of thing.
Which is how you ended up in Singapore and Turkey and other places.
Yep.
And figuring out how to train while you're there.
Yeah. It's is an interesting job. I mean, it's definitely a desk job kind of vibe, and evaluating investment opportunities is a very numbers driven pursuit, right? So that's why it's kind of why I get into the data crunching of my CrossFit work as well.
Did you have to go back to school for that?
No. So when I first
You're like, hey, you're a theater major.
I was about to say,
no, it's
Hired.
There is
looks good to me. You can do investing.
yeah, there was one step in between where I worked at kind of like a consulting firm that focused on media and entertainment companies.
Okay.
Like business consulting for them. And then one of the projects I did was we worked for an investment firm that was looking at buying like a media and entertainment company and helping them figure out if it was a good investment. And that firm, kind of that client had a job opening, and I had a good relationship with the firm. So that's how I
Interesting.
applied.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of people's careers actually do that. For example, like Chris is obviously in the fitness space, but it was like got into fitness. Well, it's like HPE, which kind of blended its way into like strength conditioning, more that side of things. And then that sort of led more into like the coaching side of things, which led more into the business side of things. That's like you slowly get exposure to each of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like you were prepared for the job, or was like a lot of learning on the fly?
There are certain kind of technical skills that you have to have, like putting together financial models or PowerPoint slides or that kind of thing, right? And giving business presentations that you need to pick up in the first couple months of the job. But once you have the basics down, it's kind of learning how your company does things, right? What criteria they look at for an investment opportunity and implementing that, right?
So you're like evaluating an investment opportunity, and then do you like present that to someone?
Yeah. So typically the way it works is we have an investment committee is what we call it. So this is like senior people at the company. And
Shark Tank,
yeah, basically, right. It's the same skill, right? Like pitching business opportunities, right? And we say, we think this is a good opportunity for the firm for XYZ reasons. We think that if we write a check for this company that we can make X amount of money if we buy this company. And here's why we think that. Here are the kind of merits of the opportunity. And they say yes or no.
So if it goes bad, do they come to you, Sam? You son of a...
The thing is, if it goes bad, that's in 5 to 10 years anyway. And who knows where I'll be.
Sam walks out of the meeting like, hope that works out.
Yeah.
We'll see.
You get promoted based on doing things, not on things doing well.
Interesting.
A bit of an exaggeration.
I got a great idea, guys. We're going to invest in this toothpick industry.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously you do a lot with numbers. Yeah. Do you consider yourself like an analyst, basically?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you think about that job of looking for potential companies to invest in, right? Like you kind of need some level of senior people that are on the road making relationships with companies or building relationships, right? Like you need someone who's going out and playing golf with a guy and convincing him to sell the company, right? Mm-hmm. You also need people that are crunching the numbers and putting together the presentations and figuring out, how much money can we make off of this? What are the risks? What is the business plan for this? So I fall into that second bucket right now, but the idea is over your career, you kind of shift towards the relationship side.
Interesting.
Yeah. TBD if I'll have an affinity for that.
I was just about to say, because that's a different set of skills. You're more of a salesperson at that point than anything else.
Right. You're selling the firm. You're selling the track record of how you can help companies. Right. I mean, the idea is we're not just writing them a check, but we're providing them with the resources of the firm. Right. Like other companies that we work with, advisors in our network, consultants we know, stuff like that, to help them build their business. It's the idea, at least.
Yeah. It was actually really funny because after at least quarterfinals, and I think you've done this a number of times, but you basically sent me this entire like PDF with all these graphs and charts, and it was awesome. I actually forwarded it to Chris, and he looked at it too. But so how do you think about, like, for example, when you did that, you basically like scraped the leaderboard and just really quickly explain what that process of just like putting together that PDF was in your mind.
Yeah.
You can explain what it was and then like go over like just really quickly like what was the process of putting them together.
Yeah, for sure. So I think anyone who competes in CrossFit knows that it's important to understand if you want to be competitive and progress in the season, where you stack up against the field in different areas. And the easiest way to do that is in the open to look at the leaderboard and say, how did I stack up against the field in every workout, right? And so the question that I was interested in is I wanted to know not just what percentile I had performed at in each of the workouts, but I wanted to know what does the distribution of other performers look like, of other athletes, right? Would going 10 seconds faster on this workout give me 2 percentile points higher, or would it give me 20 percentile points higher, right? I want to know where does
everyone could be
fall?
bottlenecked at the same point in a workout.
Yeah, for sure.
And it might be like, well, really, I didn't need to get way better in this workout. It was just that there's all these people that were stacked in this little bit.
Exactly. It's like, if I, in quarterfinals, if I didn't finish the last set of 10 ring muscle ups, how big of a cliff is that, right? So that's something that you don't just get from the CrossFit Games app, right? And so what I did is I went on the CrossFit Games leaderboard website, and as everyone who has been on there knows, it's in a kind of table format, right? And so I used a scraper Google Chrome web extension to pull down into an Excel file, a couple thousand row Excel file of all the scores of all the athletes on all of those workouts, right? And then I kind of did a little bit of number crunching to be able to look at each workout and say, at each percentile level, 10th percentile, 20th, 30th, et cetera, what is the time or score associated with that percentile? Where do I fall? And how much better do I have to get on each of these workouts to, say, make it to semifinals, right? So, for example, I could look at my performance in quarterfinals and say, okay, ask a question to the data, like, where did the worst guy that still qualified for semifinals do on this workout?
Okay.
Right?
Very important question.
Right? Or
you don't want to hit that in all the workouts, but.
Right? Or at least that's like a benchmark, right? Is like the worst guy that qualified for semis, you got to hit that, right? Or you could say the 25th percentile guy that qualified for semis, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do that if you haven't scraped the data down and you have it in Excel in a format you can manipulate, right? And that's an important question to me because everyone knows that, okay, you want to make it to semis or you want to make it to quarters, yeah, you have to train harder, you have to fill your weakness gaps, blah, blah, blah. But those numbers were important to me.
Yeah. My way of doing it was a whole lot less sophisticated.
Oh, yeah.
Just go to the 120th place and click on their profile and see what their worst scores were and then like scroll up the lines, click again.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, that is really important stuff to know because like if you're someone who has those intentions of like, hey, let's try to push to get to a semifinal in the next season or two, it's like you need to have a very clear understanding of this is what that's going to require. This is where I'm also currently at, and then what's it potentially going to take to like close that gap.
Yeah, and I think the most actionable or practical application of this was in Wadapalooza. So I was with Ben and another Chris on a team trying to make it to Wadapalooza this year, and one question we had going into the qualifier was, how good do we have to be, or how did folks do last season? And so I did the same thing. I pulled down the data and I said, okay, how good are the guys on each of these workouts? What's their average snatch? What's their average, 2K row? What's their average max toes to bar? Where do I stack up against that? And then going into Wadapalooza qualifier this year, I knew, okay, it's a possibility to make it, but gonna have to have a perfect day.
Yeah.
Right? Gonna have to send it, gonna have to take risks, gonna have to go for that 5 pounds higher snatch, right? Whereas if I had known, okay,
And redo all the workouts and like
yeah,
the whole
exactly.
thing.
Gonna have to redo it. You're gonna have to redo it to go 1 second faster, right? I knew that's where I was. Whereas if I had done that analysis and I had said, okay, my worst day kind of training hall numbers are still gonna be good enough, it would have been going into the competition with a different mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've been with me basically one season.
Yeah.
What a glorious season.
What a glorious season.
Yeah.
Big picture things. Is there any like key learnings that you have over the course of the season?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, just thinking about the time that I've worked with you, Ben, I would really segment into 2 phases of myself as an athlete, right? When I came to you, I had a lot of gaps that we needed to plug, right? From where I wanted to be, which was to have a shot at a semifinal one day. There were some gaps we had to plug. So I had to get my ring muscle up, cycling numbers up. I had to get certain strength elements up. I had to cycle my pistols faster. I had to, improve my rope climb descents, all these things that we could practice very deliberately and specifically that we needed to clean up, right? And that is still ongoing to some extent, but now we're kind of moving into this phase where I have a lot of the basic pieces, but we need to do them better and faster, right? So that's how I've thought about kind of the phasing with you. I will say that one thing that's been really valuable to me about working with a coach has been really dialing in and focusing my programming on my weaknesses and where we need to spend time, right? Sure, we need to keep some touches on wall balls and toast bar, but I don't need to be doing, I'm doing Karen unbroken here. Like, I don't need to be doing that many wall balls, right?
All right, 200 unbroken.
With a 30.
Let's keep going.
Right. So I feel like my takeaway from working with you as a coach so far has been spending the limited time that there is in the week and the limited energy and the limited ability there is to recover of any athlete, right? Or especially not one who's working out full time, to really spend that time most effectively.
So before we get back to the topic at hand, which is much more applicable, I just thought of this. Were you always like the jacked actor, or was there like a transition?
Well, it's funny. I mean, maybe just quit. Like,
You're like, the talents, all right.
yeah. I was like, I'll take that as a compliment. It's funny. Like, I started, like, I think most teenage guys do in the fitness world, from like, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym in my neighborhood and do chest and triceps one day and back and biceps the other day. This is like in 2010 or something, right? In college, we had this is before I did any CrossFit.
This is great.
No, I love this.
We had a college powerlifting club. Ooh. And we would do kind of like meets, like we would do a powerlifting meet against Texas A&M or BU or whatever. And so, I got my squat, bench, and deadlift up, and that was huge, right? Mm-hmm. Because coming into CrossFit with whatever, like a 335 squat or something versus a 235 squat is helps a lot, right?
Right.
So that was in college, and then I came to my first CrossFit class out of college, and just going to one in a city, right?
Tell them about like weightlifting in I think it was
in Florida.
High school.
Yeah. So it's funny. So
this cracks me up.
My high school had a weightlifting team, and this is a public high school in Florida. And it's funny. So weightlifting is an actual sport in Florida, but the catch is it's a spring sport, not a fall sport, because fall sport is when football is, right? And they wanted to have a sport so that they could make the football team practice in the spring when it technically wasn't football season, right? So spring weightlifting is actually just for the football team, effectively, and then me, who wanted to try weightlifting. But the funny thing is the competition is not snatch and clean and jerk; it's bench press and clean and jerk, because they don't want to be able. They can't teach kids the snatch, right? So I was, 150-pound high schooler. I just walk into the weight room and join the team. And I had worked with a coach at a local gym, and he had taught me how to, squat, clean, and split jerk.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And I was the only kid probably in the state of Florida that could do a squat clean. Right? You know what I mean? So I was like squat clean and jerk 165 and, bench press 200. But of course, most of the other guys were bench pressing 315 and then clean and jerking 135.
Right. That's so interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if that's changed, but.
So was your getting into fitness, was it like, I don't know if you were like this, but it was for me.
Yeah.
It was sports related, right? That's why I went to the weight room. Now, I think we can all admit at some point people like to look good. And so, I definitely was the skinny high school kid flexing in the mirror, like, I got some muscles coming in. But the goal was athletic based. And so was that your pursuit off the bat? Or was it like, I just want to...
like aesthetics.
Yeah, I want to build some muscles.
And then you found CrossFit.
And get to know some girls.
Yeah, for sure. So it started with bodybuilding for me. Like, it started with, going to do the quad extension machine or whatever at the local gym. And then there was a gym that opened near my school called the Arc School of Fitness. And this was, again, probably 2010, 2011. And this was like what eventually became a CrossFit gym. And the coach there was looking for, young folks to come in and to coach him, and kind of for him to get some reps on coaching, to be honest. And so he gave me a free membership. And I was in high school, right? And so I would go in there as a high school kid, and we would do like 7x2 hang snatch or whatever, which was like crazy thing for a high school
Wow.
kid to do at the time. And I would be, snatching the PVC and falling on my butt. Right. But I got some reps on Olympic weightlifting.
Interesting.
Right? So that was, I think, huge in my kind of early development, or at least for the neurological aspect of the sport.
When did you say that? So I guess rewind.
Yeah.
When did you walk into CrossFit again? First CrossFit gym?
Yeah, so my first like CrossFit class, right, was after college. So call this 2018, 2019. Yeah.
And how long did you just do classes before you were like, oh, I want to do the sport?
Yeah, so the progression for me was starting in 2018, and I was kind of that guy who came into class and couldn't do a double under, couldn't do a handstand push up, but like I could not really warm up and power clean 225, right? I was kind of like that guy. And then over a year and a half of doing CrossFit class, I got better at it, and wanted to push myself in the open and try to get a higher percentile and that kind of competitive edge. And then a bit of a turning point for me was when COVID hit and there was a lockdown of gyms. My gym closed in New York City, so I was for almost a year, right? I was doing running and pull-ups and push-ups in the park. And then when I came back from COVID and gyms reopening, I was like, okay, I'm getting serious about this, right? So this was, I would go to class still, but I would do stuff outside of class, right? I would throw in a 5x5 front squat. I would throw in some ring muscle up practice. I would throw in some double under practice, right? And then when the open came around one year, the first year they had quarterfinals, right? I barely missed quarterfinals. Like I was like 85th or 86th percentile or something. And I was like, crap, I can't do this. I got to make it, right? And so I pushed and tried to practice my muscle ups and practice my snatches and that kind of thing. And I made it, and I was like, okay, I made it, but to get any better, I need a coach. Like I can't just keep going to class and trying to squeeze in time when there's the one session of open gym at my facility, right? I need to work with a coach, and I need to full-time work on my own thing.
I feel like most people, I did this. I don't know if Chris did this or not, but it was like classes. Then it was like classes plus extra stuff.
Yeah.
And then it was like blog. And then it was like, okay, maybe I should hire a coach. Why not go like, oh, I can go follow a online training program? Was that not on your radar? Or was that?
I definitely thought about it. So if we rewind to open / quarterfinal season 2022, so almost a year ago, right? Yeah. I was coming out of the open, coming out of quarterfinals, and thinking, okay, do I want to go coach route or do I want to go blog?
Yeah.
And I think, probably two things. One is I knew that I had specific weaknesses that needed to be addressed, right? And that a coach would generally be better able to do that than general programming. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was financial. I was in a place with my career where I could pay for a coach, and that's not true for everyone.
Right.
So,
yeah. My path was a little bit different. I got lucky that I had a guy who did like the OPEC cert, and he was like, hey, can you be my guinea pig? I was like, yeah, I'll be your guinea pig. And I got better way faster. And so I was like, this is probably better than what I was doing in class. But it's
so you went and did CCP then?
Yeah. Yeah. He kind of, when I saw how much better he got at programming and how much I got better as an athlete, I was like, oh, there's something to this.
So is he just trying to learn about program design and just said, I'll test out my ideas on you?
Well, he had done his CCP.
Yeah.
And he was done.
Yeah.
And he was like, I need someone to start. I need an athlete to start coaching. He's like, can I coach you for 6 months for free? And I was like, yeah.
You're like, well.
If you're going to twist my arm. But, it's one of those things where I think it's fair to say, and this might be a generalization, but I feel like most people who go to Harvard are pretty smart. And so it's one of those things where it's like,
you'd be surprised.
where it's like, you're probably smart enough to be able to be like, okay, I know I'm not good at these things relative to the field. And I'm pretty good at these things, but I don't know the path to get these things good. And I know I'm not going to get enough touches on it in a blog programming to get better. And so let me reach out to a coach. So that, I feel like if that's your mentality and that's your mindset, like that path naturally makes sense.
And more than just needing a coach, I knew that if I was going to improve and get that last bit of, going from top 1% to top 1.1%, right, is such a big jump. I knew that I was going to need a thought partner more than anything, right? I knew I was going to need someone who was really sharp in the CrossFit space. And so whether that was like a mentor in person, whether that was an online coach, right, like was kind of TBD for me. But when I found Zor and Ben's content, I kind of knew like, okay, this guy's smart and I want him in my ecosystem, right?
Smart Ben. That's what they call him.
Yeah.
Brainy
Ben.
I was going to say, I call him Big Brain Ben.
Other people call me different things.
We could ask Brooke what she calls you.
Exactly.
All right. So you're training for CrossFit. You train pretty hard. You have a full-time job. There's a lot of people that have the goal of maybe wanting to be competitive. They're like, I got this job. I got this family, whatever. And I'm sure for some folks there is like a true limitation, right? Or shifting of priorities maybe. But then for other folks, it's like, you have to have the discipline to structure your life to do the things that you want to do. So I feel like you're the latter, right? You're the person who has a very structured lifestyle to attack the goals that you have. So for people to understand what that looks like, what does a day look like for you?
Yeah, sure. So
A day in the life.
Yeah.
day in the life.
This is going on YouTube, so hopefully it's super popular. I feel like all those videos have like a
Do a little room tour too. Yeah.
Here I am.
All
This
my
is
meal
day in the
prep.
life.
This is my fifth bowl of oatmeal today. It's like every day in the life. It's like full day of eating. I had my sixth bagel today.
My 8th bowl of rice.
Yeah. Chicken and rice again. Games athletes are literally so boring.
Yeah, I mean, look, every day for me is pretty much the same. Every weekday is wake up, 5:30 a.m., gym, typically 2-hour session, go to work, and 3 or 4 days a week I'll do a PM session. So come into the gym for 90 minutes or 2 hours in the evening, and then rush home and go to bed. Because if I'm gonna get 8 hours, I gotta move quick.
Yeah.
I gotta wash those dishes quickly. Right?
So your job standard 9 to 5?
It's a little more varied. Like it can be 8 to 8 some days. It can be 9 to 4, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do, so I just leave it for some days. Like it's kind of all over the place. So there can be a little bit of stress about, am I going to make my PM session today, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to be kind to yourself and flexible and say, okay, I can move this to the next day, or I can move this piece to the other day if needed. But look, I'm always going to get my AM session in. It's just the PM can sometimes be hard.
I think that's a huge thing because I think from a coach perspective, right? Like I'm sure you're good about, hey, okay, no problem. Just move this to this day, move this to this day, right? So you don't have too much interference, but you still kind of can get the work in. But just that thought process of
He doesn't really miss sessions.
No, the little
Unless
bit
it's something like really crazy.
he doesn't miss it. Yeah.
miss it.
But what I was gonna say is like that thought process of like you have that 8 to 8 day, and you're like, all right, listen, it doesn't make sense for me to go work out right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people, the people generally who get into to get an online coach are super diligent and they don't like shifting or changing things. And so it's like, oh, I got 3 hours of sleep last night, but I did everything you wrote. And it's
But this is written, so here we go.
Yeah, so it's like, why did we do that? But so
you think I would have wrote that if I knew you got 3 hours of sleep?
Right. And so it's like having that thought process of being mature enough as an athlete or diligent enough to have the right discernment of, okay, this is there, because there are points in training where it's like, listen, just don't be a baby and get the work in.
Yeah.
And there are points in training where it's like, okay, hey, I can move this to a different day and everyone will live. It's like, so I think that's a good delineation to be able to be like, all right, it's okay. I can do this, whenever.
Yeah. I mean, I think, a big mindset shift for me has been, look, there's only room for so many things in your life, right? Like between family, friends, work, fitness. And like, I'm at this point in my life where I have work and I can really, really prioritize fitness, right? And I'm trying to take advantage of that.
Right.
Trying to seize every moment of that. I'm trying to squeeze as much juice from that as I can. And if work runs a little late one day, I guess I think about it in two ways. One is generally we think about weekly training volume, right? More so than like how much you need to do in a day. Maybe there's a max to how much you're going to do in a day, right? But there's certain things I want to touch every week. And then the other thing is, like Ben's not my boss. Like I'm paying for this.
Right.
So if I miss it, like he's not going to be mad at me. Like it's okay. Right.
Yeah, and I also think it's interesting how we sort of structure your week, and it's something that I do for. I've been doing it more and more. Like the standard Thursday is your recovery day, Sunday is your rest day. I feel like maybe isn't always 100% appropriate, or maybe just not optimal for people who are like working professionals. Do you want to explain how we do it?
Yeah, sure. So the way that Ben and I do it is Monday is a recovery day for me. Thursday is a complete rest day for me. And then Saturday and Sunday are my two biggest training days. And that's because that's when I have the most time to be in the gym. And the other is because, a lot of my social life and closest friends are in the gym. And so I actually want to just kind of hang and be a gym rat Saturday and Sunday, right? So maybe I have 3-4 hours of training to do, but I'll be in the gym for 6-7 hours and have 2 meals and, a couple fit aids in there, right? Just be that guy foam rolling for 90 minutes.
And do a couple strict muscle ups.
Hey, Susie, still here.
Yeah. And that works well for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that because I have a couple athletes who have done that. And it's like some people get so set in their ways of like Wednesday or Thursday is the rest day. Every blog program is written like that. And it's like, that might not always be what's best for the person, right? And so for you, it's like, I'd rather not have to stress too much about my training during the week. So let's just jam out on Saturdays and Sundays. Like I'm cool with that,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and even so, like, I've had other coaches that I've coached for, and it's like often for them, like for example, if I have a remote coach that I'm also coaching for, it's like they really don't want to let all the work kind of linger into the weekend. So it's like if they can get a rest day or a recovery day early in the week where they can spend less time in the gym, that allows them to front load more of the work, and they feel generally pretty good about that. Yeah. So I think also just for like a lot of people who are just people with jobs or responsibilities, it's like often they have all this time on the weekend and like not a lot of time on weekdays, so it just makes sense to have them take a rest day and take care of your stuff on the week. Yeah, I agree. I've been going more to that. Yeah. Is there anything that you've found particularly challenging over the last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing about sort of advancing as a mature CrossFitter is setting expectations, right? Around performance, milestones, PRs, all of that. You input so much into the sport to get inconsistent outputs, right?
It's not a spreadsheet,
right? Yeah.
It'd be nice if it was.
It's really not. It's not a 10% month over month or year over year growth.
Yeah.
People will say 1% better every day, but if I get 1% better every year, it's probably a decent year, right? So managing expectations, I think, has been the hardest because we put in a lot of volume on everything every week, and some days I test a 1K row and it goes terribly, and that's just okay, right? So I think it's hard because I think the fitness, industry stereotypes are so focused on goal setting around outputs, right? Reaching a certain PR this year, reaching a certain stage in the competition this year. But I try to think about my goals for the year or for the month or for the quarter or whatever in terms of what I'm going to input, right? So my goal for 2023 is I'm training, 2-hour sessions, 9 sessions a week, and I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep, and that's my input. And then the output will be whatever it is, right?
Right, but those are things you can control.
Yeah.
Right, and so if you're maximizing your inputs, right, the outputs will take care of itself.
Yep.
And you'll probably like the outcome.
Yep.
But that's a good point because, a lot of people get hung up.
Or you could, this, like in the honest conversation, it's like, or you could hurt your back and not be able to train for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Which happened.
Right?
Yeah,
happened to me.
And it wasn't that you didn't have good inputs, it's just that like stuff happens sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing. And you brought up a good point, just that whole thought process, right? Because I'm sure we could, the three of us can agree, we've all been there at some point. And I know I have, where it's like, you put in a progression on something and everything feels great. And it's like, okay, we're going to test it this day. And
you feel like garbage.
You feel like garbage. And it's like, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I've had to fight like, okay, well, I don't PR. was this whole progression lost? And
Right.
it's like, no, it wasn't. Like, you just didn't have, it just wasn't there today.
Yep.
When it's like 2 months from now, without the progression, right? You might hit the PR, but it's not because that, you know, people are like, I hit that PR out of nowhere. And it's like, was it really out of nowhere? Or did you put 12 weeks of work in 4 weeks prior and you just happen to feel better today? Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It's like having that mentality to let go of those tough sessions or days that don't go the way you want, even though you're putting a lot of the inputs in is, you know, an important skill.
I think one thing that's been mentally challenging there as well is, yeah, we can only control the inputs, right? But, so much of CrossFit is centered around the competitive sport, which I want to be a part of. I want to compete. I want to be in the CrossFit competition sphere, but so much of that is linked to the games athletes, Instagram, and seeing how well people are doing and numbers people are putting up. And everyone at the gym talks about, did you see X athlete hit Y lift or you know, Y number of muscle ups and finding the balance between you need to compare yourself to others because you have to compete. I need to be better than X number of people, right? But I can't be staying up at night wondering how much Fikowski is going to split jerk, right? Because that's irrelevant to me. And it'll probably be a disappointment.
Yeah, and I feel like generally speaking, like people are never, I should say, people who have been around fitness a little bit are generally not pleased with their rate of progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they see it, it's like, well, this is where I want to be and this is where I am. And this is going really slowly. Like I'm making progress. It's just I'm worried that I don't have enough time, basically.
Yeah.
Is that something that like you've thought about? Like how many years do I have to dedicate to this? Like how am I improving? Like does that weigh on your mind at all?
It does, but I actually think about it in for some reason when I think about how much time I have in the gym in my life or in my serious training career, I actually think about it in a kind of peaceful, positive way, by which I mean I think, okay, realistically, this chasing really intense training might go on for another, call it 5 years in my life, right? That's 50 weeks, 5 days a week of training, 250 training sessions a year times 5 years is 1,250 sessions. So I have beep boop boop, right? Like all of this to say, like the way that I think about it is, look, like I have 1,000 sessions of being a really competitive CrossFitter, of going to the gym and being able to do a handstand, being able to rip some muscle ups, being able to move heavy weight, and that's beautiful, right? Like that almost brings like a tear to my eye saying that, right? Like I have 1,000 sessions of that in my life left. That's an amazing thing that I think about. So yeah, okay, maybe I'll never make semis. Maybe I'll never make the games, right? But that's what I'm here for.
It's a lot of sessions.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, and you start to think about it when you get injured or you travel and you're away from the gym or COVID hits and your gym gets locked down. You think, man, if only I could get back in the gym. If only I could get back in the gym. If only I could get back to normal, right? And so when I have like a normal session where I miss a couple of lifts and like
gives you some perspective.
drop a couple dumbbells, right? It gives some perspective and makes me cherish it. And ultimately, yeah, I have goals and I have aspirations, but I'm here because I love the training.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Have you gotten to a spot yet? And I say that because you probably will at some point where you like don't feel like going in.
I will say that sometimes sessions feel boring to me, right? Yeah. Like sometimes I look and I see, okay, 7x3 back squat with 315. Like I don't really want to do that, right? Like that just doesn't like jazz me. That doesn't like get me out of bed.
Big
right?
brain.
I don't know where that didn't work.
Right? Big brain, boring Ben.
So that's a factor. And sometimes I look at my training sheet and workouts for the week, and I have that feeling that you guys might remember from like high school math class where the teacher says, okay, page 200, numbers 1 through 20, and you go and you're like, yeah, 1 through 20, whatever. And you look at it and you're like, ah, crap, this is a lot of math problems, right? You're like, I left this till 9 p.m., right? And that's me. It's like Sunday, 1 p.m. doing my laundry. Like, I better go to the gym. Like, oh, shoot, I've got 4 hours of work to do. Right?
So what you're saying is it's just sort of daunting sometimes, the amount of work that you got.
Sometimes it feels daunting. I will say one thing that I deal with a lot is when I'm approaching big lifts, right? When I'm getting like above 90%, I would say in my first 1 to 2 years of CrossFit, I was always really excited because I knew that I was constantly improving, and I knew that any day a PR could be lurking around the corner, right?
Now it's like, oh, this is gonna be heavy.
It's two things. One is you've had reps so that you know it's gonna hurt, and the other is, again, I don't think of myself as an anxious person at all. Like, I think of myself as fairly relaxed, fairly kind of straight headed, but there's this anxiety that can come over me in the gym where the pressure of all the hours of training, of all the years of training, of all the expectations can come into my head as I'm walking up to the bar, because I know that if I don't hit this, I'm going to be disappointed, right? That the people that are watching me in the gym are going to be disappointed, right? And that if I do hit this, that people are going to be really happy for me, that I'm going to be really happy for myself, that my Instagram followers are going to be really happy about this for me, right? And so that cliff, that anxiety definitely hangs over me more and more the more serious I am about the training, because I know that a certain score really means something to me, right? When you put in that amount of work, versus if you're just, if when I was just a class athlete, it was like, oh, cool, I did more burpees, right?
It's a really good point. I remember I created a battery of fitness test for myself one off season for wrestling, and I trained a bunch of sessions every week. I don't want to say it was double days because it probably wasn't every single time, but it was a lot. I would get up before landscaping and then go to the gym afterwards and do a lot. And I just remember having crippling anxiety when I went to retest, because I was like, if I don't improve on these, my whole summer was wasted, basically. Right? Obviously, that's not true, like we were saying before, but that's what goes through your head is if I don't do this, then what am I doing all this for?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that you expect progress, right? But it doesn't always come.
What are you excited for in 2023?
What am I excited for in 2023? I mean, if I look at this upcoming season and compare myself to last year, I mean, it's funny because physically I basically look the same, but I brought
before and afters same.
If you do a before and after for me for the last 3 years, I look exactly the same. Haircut might change a little, right? But physically I look the same.
Don't do a weight loss Zor. It's like, look at my before and afters, and everyone's like, I don't see a difference.
Right? I look the same, right? But in terms of CrossFit skills, I fill a lot of holes, right? So I'm excited for quarterfinals because I know that I can rip GHDs like I couldn't before. I can rip rope climbs like I couldn't before. And so I'm more able to kind of demonstrate my capabilities, whereas last season I had been training for the open, right? I had been doing a lot of assault bike work, trying to get my engine up. I had been working on my burpees. I had been working on my butterfly pull-ups, right? And so I was ready to prove myself in the open. But this year, open, whatever. As long as I get 90th percentile, who cares? But quarterfinals is kind of my time to shine.
Yeah, that's super interesting. As you level up as an athlete, the things that become your measuring stick change over time.
Yeah.
And even the movement selection that you're most concerned about changes over time. Most games athletes aren't worried about wall balls. Or wall walks or any of that stuff. It's I got to improve my running and my clean and jerk or whatever, right? It just kind of changes. So I would say likely you're going to get to the point too where it's oh man, we haven't been doing that much running and we got to up our running, right? if you're potential to qualify for a semifinal, that sort of thing, it's all the stuff starts to shift. So I think that also keeps it fun and keeps it fresh. But no, I'm also super excited to see you do the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think actually a big shift for me in the past year has been going from a weightlifting / strength dominant athlete, right? My strength, my numbers were just higher than my gymnastics abilities and my aerobic abilities were, right? To I think a little more balanced of an athlete, right? I think that my, percentile wise, right? My gymnastics
I know, you can
numbers,
think, but I know.
Yeah. My gymnastics, no, I'm going to rank the same on max chest to bars as I am on max clean and jerk with a lot of guys, right? And so that's fun, right? And that's been kind of a way I've been finding some joy and some freshness in the sport, right? Is playing around with handstand holds, right? I couldn't do that a year ago, right?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sam, thanks for doing this today, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, guys. It's fun.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just found the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while and enjoying what you're hearing, I would encourage you to leave a rating or review for the show. It would definitely help us out. And lastly, if you're someone who does take your fitness seriously and cares about your performance deeply, I would encourage you to look into hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.